All right, welcome in everyone. We're hoping that we are doing well streaming. So just let us know as you come in if you are able to see us okay. We are streaming live on Facebook and also on YouTube. But I'm Dr. Natalie Phillips.
And I'm Dr. Hannah Galloway.
And I'm Rebecca Crowder, the audiology extern here.
And we are going to be talking today about the Olympics. But before we get there, I'm going to see if I can share my screen here and get to our YouTube channel just to talk about that real quick. All right.
Okay, so here is our YouTube channel. We're proud to report that we're getting more subscribers. So I think it's at 82 that we have now. Mm-hmm. So we are slowly kind of gathering more subscribers as we go. We are only doing one episode a month at this point, but for us, that's kind of better because we can, plan the shows accordingly. And, we do like to have lunch hours to eat food and do those kinds of things as well. So we have kind of reduced the frequency of our show, but we have a lot of old episodes. So if you want to watch something every Thursday on your lunch break, you can just start cycling through the old episodes. They're all still relative with content, unless laws have changed or things like that. But you can go through and kind of watch some of the older videos. And then you can look forward to our once a month new episode.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to kick us off, I'm going to actually have Rebecca introduce her show because she's between the three of us probably watching the most Olympics. And so I'm going to first start talking about it.
I've been forcing the Olympics on you. I've been making us take breaks to be like, watch this backflip on the ice. Yeah, I love the Olympics. I love all sporting events. Not equally, but I love all sporting events. So this is a treat for me. And I was talking with Dr. Phillips earlier, and I think Winter Olympics might be my favorite. And then one of our front desk gals, we were chatting, and Winter Olympics it's pretty, not only are they always athletic and requiring amazing amounts of discipline by very young athletes usually, but the winter ones seem pretty dangerous to me. I don't know about jumping off some of these really large jumps and doing flips and all stuff, or as I mentioned, backflips on the ice. So there's just maybe an added element of thrill and excitement.
Of danger.
Yeah, of danger. So anyway, so winter has been kind of my favorite over Summer Olympics, but both have wonderful events and things. And I love ice hockey, so that's just started this week, and that's going to be thrilling. I guess it's the first time in a long time the NHL has released their players to come back to the Olympics. So there was quite a bit of a break in between when NHL players were allowed to play. And so they're back this year, and it's very exciting. So I expect the level of play to be even more intense and exciting. And then I have fallen in love with curling, which from the outside might seem like a very interesting sport to love, but I call it like it's this intense competition, but it's like a chess game with finesse and amazing amounts of discipline, and the lunges that these people have to put themselves in, the physical position that they have to put in, and still utilize finesse. So women's curling is going on right now, and it's preliminary rounds. And so those are just some of the events that I enjoy. I don't know if you two have a couple that you like or are fond of.
I always like ice skating or ice dancing, watching that. I really haven't watched much this year, but I was telling Rebecca that my kids are 3 and 5. And so I want to put on just like the, ice skating finals, at least for them to watch and maybe some of the other sports too, just because it's such a cool concept. And they like to say, are the Chiefs playing? Which is funny when it's any sport, but it's kind of cool to explain that it's an international competition. So it's not just people in the United States, like one team versus the other. It's these different countries competing. And anyway, it is kind of a cool concept because it's like the best of the best. So we haven't really watched anything yet, but I do plan to put it on maybe tonight while we're doing our Valentine construction so that they can experience some of that. But I really, until now, haven't watched much.
Yeah, and I was going to say that I typically like to watch the summer when the Olympics are on in the summer because I like the swimming, I like the gymnastics. I also, if it were winter, depending on what is on, I can kind of easily get into it. I would say probably ice skating would be the top though, for sure. But yeah, so I would say ice skating, winter, maybe summer would be like swimming. I like the track also. Track and gymnastics. These kind of things. So,
gymnastics are my top fave for sure, but not in the winter department.
A little different in the wintertime.
Well, and we had this topic, I think during the Summer Olympics, when we talked about some either, we covered some Deaf Olympics, we covered some Olympics with hearing loss. We always find that it's so interesting to talk about hearing loss in the Olympics because we have some fun facts that we wanted to talk about and relay it, or maybe you didn't know about what the rules are or what's going on with athletes that have hearing loss. And so we wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that since it's the Olympics right now. So I'm going to have Rebecca start with the first fun fact.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up kind of ice dancing, which is different than like short programs and things where they're doing flips. Ice dancing is that coordinated movement on ice. And there's actually one of the Georgian teammates in the couples ice dancing. She actually has bilateral sensorineural hearing loss to a pretty extensive degree. I think just reading kind of her little bio online, she doesn't really like to broadcast it. She doesn't want to detract from her experience and her role as an athlete, but she also doesn't hide the fact that she wears bilateral hearing aids and uses them on the ice. And so her name is Diana Davis, and she initially started out as a figure skater, just doing typical flips and balance and things that require extreme amounts of balance and awareness. And then it got to a point where it was kind of a safety concern with her hearing loss, so she switched over to ice dancing. And it's one of those things that she's competing at a high level with hearing loss. And it's something that she was born with, acquired, I should say. She got an incorrect dose of antibiotics when she was a young child, and that definitely affected her hearing to where it's become like a progressive hearing loss a little bit later in life. But it doesn't keep her or hasn't kept her from becoming an Olympic athlete. So I think that's pretty incredible. And she's still able to get out there and skate and perform and do what she's loving, even though she's got hearing loss.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just thinking, like, coordinating with a partner. We have some patients. I have one patient that got a cochlear implant because he dances with a partner, and he was always stepping on people's feet or like not starting on time. So I feel like that would be even harder than doing solo performance as someone with hearing loss because you can't hear the cues as well. And it's not just you that's relying on those cues. It's also, your partner. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I was just noticing, like we had talked about it earlier, and then you had mentioned it again, Rebecca. But did they change it to more of called ice dancing versus ice skating?
So two different like events. And I bear with me if any of you are avid ice skating tournament that way more than I do. But there's short programs and long programs, and then ice dancing is its own specific program as well. So that's a little bit different. Again, it's synchronized dancing. I believe they had 90s themed dances this last week with ice dancing. And from what I was watching, again, don't hang me on it if it is a little inaccurate, but it seems like there weren't the typical lifts and flips that happen in more of like the couple short programs, those kind of things. But it was much more of coordinated dancing to music, adding elements. There was definitely lifts and things like that, but not to the same extent as, the pairs are doing like double axles side by side. There wasn't so much of that. Again, it's worth investigating more about. But there's definitely two different programs that are ice dancing is different than like a short or a long program.
Yeah. And you've got to think like these people, even though they're coordinating with their partner and they're using visual cues, they've also got to figure out, like with a bilateral sensorineural hearing loss, depending on the degree, even being able to hear the music, right? And I know that a lot of music can come through the floor, depending on the vibrations, things like that. But it must be really difficult as well to be able to make sure that you can stay in sync with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about a fun fact, and this is again, something that we have talked about before. But in the Deaf Olympics, hearing aids are strictly prohibited. But in the Olympic Winter Games, they do allow athletes, as we just talked about, to use their hearing aids or their cochlear implants. And we had talked about this, and I think it's quite interesting because you would think that, okay, Deaf Olympics, of course they're going to, allow people to use whatever aid that they use on a daily basis. But at the same time, if you think about it being a type of a fair, access, whatever it is kind of important to maybe not use, whatever you're using, whether it's a hearing aid or cochlear implant, because of that. So I don't know, what are your thoughts about being able to use your hearing aids and implants and cochlear implants in the regular Olympics, but in the Deaf Olympics, you can't use it?
I don't know. I mean, I know they have to draw the line somewhere of like which games do you qualify for, but it does seem a little maybe outdated or exclusionary to me to, you're still a deaf person, but you're using, especially if you're using your hearing aids for more of like environmental awareness and that kind of thing. It seems like it would be more disorienting than anything for the patient or the athlete, because I don't know how much speech they're actually getting through their, devices, but just being able to know that someone's coming up on them or whatever, like safety reasons. If you're somebody that wears hearing aids all the time, even just for environmental cues, I would think it'd be really disorienting to then suddenly not have that and be, in like a sports competition where you're looking at where the other athletes are and you just want to be as aware of what's going on around you. Which I get that maybe they're trying to like even the playing field, but I feel like the definition of deafness has changed, quite a bit over the last 20 years of like, who is a deaf person? You can wear a cochlear implant and still be a deaf person. But I'm guessing it's just they have to like, draw the line someplace for who's included in what.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Rebecca? Or
yeah, I'd be more curious to just dive in deeper into the criterion, like you're talking about, like why, if we have certain, Olympic game, yeah, it's just interesting. I'd be really curious where, like you're saying, where is that line? Like what constitutes it? How much hearing loss do you have to have? And then why did they decide unaided versus aided? Yeah, it'd be really interesting to look at the reasoning. I'm sure they spent some time thinking about it and really looking at it. Or maybe it is something that's kind of rolled over from when devices weren't as readily available. Be interesting to see.
Another fun fact that I have is actually how loud things can be at the Olympics. So this is sort of a different audiological take, but I was actually surprised. So for ice hockey and speed skating, the decibel levels of that get to be 100 dB. So that is very loud. That's like almost concert level, much louder than any speech or anything you would encounter on a daily basis. Once I measured when I was in my garage, I noticed that my garage door was really, really loud. And my garage door is 95 dB when I'm inside the empty garage, but it's really loud. And so maybe somebody can kind of relate to that, like when you're in the garage and you're opening and closing the door, all that sound is not leaving. It's just really loud in your face. So that's about the same level as it would be for ice hockey and speed skating. And then for figure skating, it's 95 dB. So still really loud. And especially thinking about, the ice dancer with the hearing aids, really loud in there. So a lot of information is getting lost. And then the floor is ice. So I haven't really studied how sound reflects. I would guess it's just reflects off of ice more, like it's more reverberant. So that would make it really hard to hear the music and just be sort of acclimated with what's going on because it's really loud in there anyway. So fun facts, it is really loud in those events. And so hopefully they're taking into account hearing protection and that kind of thing when necessary. I'm guessing practice is not that loud, but the actual Olympics, with all the crowd and everything.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because, when people see or hear like, okay, 100 dB or 95 dB, it sounds pretty loud. And should we protect our hearing, or should the athletes protect their hearing? And the answer is not necessarily do they have to, because if you saw one of our other videos talking about just loudness and the half-life, and for every so many hours, like for 8 hours, if you are exposed to 85 decibels, then you should be implementing or wearing some type of earplug to protect you. Every increase of that by, I think it's like 5 decibels, is 3 to 5 decibels is a half-life. So if you go up to like 90 decibels, it'll be like 4 hours of exposure time. And so when you're thinking about like 95 and 100, you're looking at 1 to 2 hours. And these events are maybe, I don't know how long, less than a minute maybe. So, you don't have to worry too much about being able to protect your hearing, or the athletes have to. So I just wanted to kind of put that in perspective. All right. Okay, Rebecca.
Yeah, just kind of heading back to, talking about a little bit about the Summer Olympics. We have had a number of U.S. representation with hard of hearing individuals competing. David Smith is a volleyball player. He was from 2012 to 2024. So even with hearing loss, he's able to knock the ball over the net. We had a Marie, I'm going to butcher her last name, so I apologize, Marie, but it's Roethlisberger. She was a gymnastics alternate, and this is back in '84. We aptly named Jeff Float was a swimmer in 1984 as well. He was actually our first deaf Olympic swimmer to receive a gold medal, so that was pretty significant. And then we had a basketball player from 2002 to 2016. She's won 4 consecutive gold medals. That's Tamika Catchings. And then diving in 2008 and 2012, Chris Colwell was also representing the U.S. for us. So, hearing loss can be debilitating, can affect our quality of life. But for some of these athletes, they've been able to push through and kind of manage their hearing loss and not let it hold them back. So, once you start to take care of your hearing loss, you can enjoy activities just, well, I'm not saying the rest of us are going to the Olympics for things, but you certainly can enjoy your quality of life at the highest level.
I like this comment. Jeff Float, GOAT swimmer name. That's a great name for a swimmer.
Yes.
And speaking of another swimmer, Meg Harris, an Olympic swimmer from Australia, she has spoken about the stress of not being able to hear the start line whistle whenever she is competing. So there's currently no additional way to signal swimmers that it's time to take off, which is actually surprising to me that there wouldn't be some sort of like a flashing light option or something that would come on simultaneously, because that would be stressful. You'd be kind of looking at the other contestants and, feeling like you're a second behind to take off.
Yeah. And when it comes down to like 100th of a second making, the difference, you having to watch with your peripheral vision or whatever it is for other swimmers to take off and then you take off, I feel like that is a disadvantage. So I am pretty surprised about this fun fact as well.
I would be interested to research what other, accommodations there are in other sports, if there are any, like the starter pistol for when you're running, or, do they have anything else like that? That could even be like a visual something, like a flare or something.
Well, even like the pistol, if you think about it, like depending on where they set it off, right? Like it takes some time for it to actually reach you. So for someone that has a hearing loss, that could be a little bit of a delay. Although you can see it, I guess, but the delay of the sound doesn't match necessarily when it actually goes off, right? Just kind of like a cannon going on a football game, right? You see it and then you hear it later. So
right.
So we do have to give a shout out. So as we start closing down here, our show for February, we do have to give a shout out to Liz, who is one of our students from the University of Northern Colorado. She comes every a couple times a week, and she did find these fun facts for us and give us these facts for our show today. So we wanted to thank her. And again, we just kind of wanted to tie in what was going on right now with the Olympics and some fun facts. And stay tuned for our March episode and see what we have for you guys in store then. All right, we will see you then.
Thank you.
Mhm.